माधवा कुंज बिहारी गोपीजन वल्लभा गिरिवारधारी गोपीजन वल्लभा गिरिवारधारी यशोदानंदन व्रजजन रंजन यशोदानंदन व्रजजन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपीजन वल्लभा गिरिवारधारी यशोदानंदन व्रजजन रंजन यशोदानंदन व्रजजन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी परमहंसपरिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शास्त्री श्रीमद् स्वामी प्रसिद्ध भक्त वेदांत स्वामी श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विश्वपाद परमहंसपरिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शास्त्री श्रीमद् स्वामी भक्त सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। All Gurus assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All Gurus assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All Gurus assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All Gurus, all Gurus, all Gurus to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5. Astvevam anga bhagavan bhajatam mukundo muktim dadati karhichit smana bhakti yogam rajan patir gurur alam bhavatam yadunam daivam priya kulapati kvacha kinkaro va अस्त्वेवम् अंग भगवान भजतां मुकुंदो मुक्तिं ददाति कर्हिचित् स्म न भक्ति योगम् राजन् पतिर्गुरुरलं भवतां यदूनां दैवं प्रिया कुलपति क्व च किंकरो वा अस्त्वेवमंग भगवान भजतां मुकुंदो मुक्तिं ददाति कर्हिचित् स्म न भक्ति योगम् राजन् पतिर्भवत् दैवं प्रिया कुलपति क्व च किंकरो वा अस्त्वेवमंग भगवान भजतां मुकुंदो मुक्तिं ददाति कर्हिचित् स्म न भक्ति योगम् राजन् पतिर्गुरुरलं भवतां यदूनां दैवं प्रिया कुलपति क्व च किंकरो वा अस्त्वेवमंग भगवान भजतां मुकुंदो मुक्तिं ददाति कर्हिचित् स्म न भक्ति योगम्. Mataji's. Word to word translation. Rajan, O my dear king, Pati, maintainer, Guru, spiritual master, Alam, certainly, Bhavatam, of you, Yadunam, the Yadu dynasty, Daivam, the worshipable deity, Priya, very dear friend, Kulapati, the master of the dynasty, Kvacha, sometimes even, Kinkara, servant, Va, of you, the Pandavas, Astu, to be sure, Evam, thus, Anga, O king, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhajatam, of those devotees engaged in service, Mukunda, the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Muktim, liberation, Dadati, delivers, Karhichit, at any time, Sma, indeed, Na, not, Bhakti Yogam, loving devotional service. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Shukadeva Goswami continued, My dear king, the Supreme Person, Mukunda, is actually the maintainer of all the members of the Pandava and Yadu dynasties. He is your spiritual master, a worshipable deity, friend, and the director of your activities. To say nothing of this, he sometimes serves your family as a messenger or servant. This means he worked just as ordinary servants do. Those engaged in getting the Lord's favor attain liberation from the Lord very easily, but he does not very easily give the opportunity to render a direct service unto him. Purport. While instructing Maharaj Parikshit, Shukadeva Goswami thought it wise to encourage the king because the king might be thinking of the glorious position of various royal dynasties. Especially glorious is the dynasty of Priyavrat, in which the Supreme Lord Rishabdev incarnated. Similarly, the family of Uttanapad Maharaj, the father of Maharaj Dhruva, is also glorious due to King Prithu's taking birth in it. The dynasty of Maharaj Raghu is glorified because Lord Ramchandra appeared in that family. As far as the Yadu and Kuru dynasties are concerned, they existed simultaneously. But of the two, the Yadu dynasty was more glorious due to the appearance of Lord Krishna. Maharaj Parikshit might have been thinking that the Kuru dynasty was not as fortunate as the others because the Supreme Lord did not appear in their family, neither as Krishna, Lord Ramchandra, Lord Rishabdev, or Maharaj Prithu. Therefore, Parikshit Maharaj was encouraged by Shukadeva Goswami in this particular verse. The Kuru dynasty may be considered more glorious due to the presence of devotees like the 5 Pandavas who rendered unalloyed devotional service. Although Lord Krishna did not appear in the Kuru dynasty, he was so obligated to the Pandavas' devotional service that he acted as a maintainer of the family and spiritual master of the Pandavas. Although he took birth in the Yadu dynasty, Lord Krishna was more affectionate to the Pandavas. By his actions, Lord Krishna proved that he was more inclined to the Kuru dynasty than the Yadu dynasty. Indeed, Lord Krishna, indebted to the Pandavas' devotional service, sometimes acted as their messenger and he guided them through many dangerous situations. Therefore, Maharaj Parikshit should not have been saddened because Lord Krishna did not appear in his family. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always inclined towards his pure devotees, and by his action, it is clear that liberation is not very important for the devotees. Lord Krishna easily gives one liberation, but he does not so easily give one the facility to become a devotee. Muktim dadati karechitsma na bhakti yogam. Directly or indirectly, it is proved that bhakti yoga is the basis for the supreme relationship with the Supreme Lord. It is by far superior to liberation. For a pure devotee of the Lord, mukti is automatically attained. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Shwapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Nitinamine Vansha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratushe Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 6, verse number 18. Shukadeva Goswami continued, My dear King, the Supreme Person, Mukunda, is actually the maintainer of all the members of the Pandava and Yadu dynasties. He is your spiritual master, worshipable deity, friend, and the director of your activities. To say nothing of this, he sometimes serves your family as a messenger or servant. This means he worked just as ordinary servants do. Those engaged in getting the Lord's favor attain liberation from the Lord very easily, but he does not very easily give the opportunity to render direct service unto him. It's a very wonderful verse. We are towards the last section, basically it's the penultimate verse of this particular chapter, as well as of the section of Lord Rishabdev. Last Saturday we had a very wonderful class by Vamshivardhan Prabhu. He gave on the ill effects of not being attached to fruitive activity in devotional service. And obviously we are blessed with Radhesham Prabhu's Wednesday classes. He speaks a lot on, highlights a lot on pure devotional service, which is the crux, as Prabhupada mentions toward the end of the purport. Directly or indirectly, it is proved that Bhakti Yoga is the basis for the supreme relationship with the Supreme Lord. So it is far, far higher and better than even liberation, because the constitutional position of the living entity is to be engaged in the service of the Lord. Muktir hitva anyatha rupam swarupena vyavasthiti, and our swarup is Krishnera Nitya Das. So that is the power of devotional service, which is much higher than even liberation. So we'll just have a brief recap, because this is the ending of the section of Rishabdev, and we'll try to highlight on 4 different aspects of this particular purport. One is about how the speaker, although he may be personally absorbed in the katha, but yet he is conscious of the audience. We see here about Shukdev Goswami being conscious of Parikshit Maharaj. Second, we'll see about the culture of encouragement. Here Shukdev Goswami is particularly encouraging Parikshit Maharaj that you don't need to be saddened that the Supreme Lord has not appeared in your dynasty. Rather, the Supreme Personality of Godhead actually rendered so many direct services unto your grandparents, grandfathers. So he very much encourages. And then we'll also see about how is it required to ask for favors from the Lord. Should we ask for favors from the Lord? Or is it that the Supreme Lord actually awards whatever one requires? And towards the end, as Prabhupada very much highlights, that directly or indirectly, it is proved that bhakti is the basis for the supreme relationship. So how bhakti is the basis for supreme relationship, and not any other opulences, or not any, just like Kunti Maharaj says, Janma Ishvara Shuta Shri, neither any opulences nor any connection, any familial connection with the Lord, but it is only bhakti which establishes our relationship with the Supreme Lord. So just to give a brief recap, we are in this towards the last section of Lord Rishabdev, where we find Priyavrat Maharaj right in the beginning of the 5th canto. Then we find Agnidhara, his son. Then towards Nabhi, and finally you have Lord Rishabdev appearing in the family of Nabhi. They had performed sacrifice in need of a son, and when particularly Lord Vishnu appeared, Nabhi along with the priests had requested for a wonderful son, and as a result Rishabdev appeared. So when Rishabdev appears, it is described that Rishabha, the very word Rishabha, means best, best of all, supreme beings. So it is described that even married women would get attracted to the beautiful features, transcendental bodily features of Rishabdev. He was considered as the best. In fact, it is said when Indra at one point of time, being envious of Rishabdev, did not pour rains, Lord Rishabdev simply by his own prowess, by the power of Yoga Maya, could get rains without even the sanction of Indra. And Indra was just wondering what happened. I didn't sanction and still the rains are there. So that was the power of Lord Rishabdev. And we find that eventually he gets married to Jayanti, and he gets 100 sons. One of the prominent eldest son, Bharat Maharaj, of whom we are going to hear from the coming chapters. And then 9 others were Kshatriyas, that means totally 10 Kshatriyas. And then 81 were Brahmanas, and 9 were exalted Paramahamsas, whom we'll hear in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, exalted personalities of Paramahamsas. And then we find that at Brahmavarta, Rishabdev instructs his sons. An entire chapter was dedicated in the previous one, where he instructed his son. Prabhupada mentions as an example for how a father should instruct his sons and retire to the forest life. Eventually, he accepts the feature of Avadhut, practically like blind, deaf and dumb. And unfortunately, people of this world could not recognize his glorious transcendental features of being exhibiting as Avadhut. They did not recognize that he is the Supreme Personality or the expansion, and they would actually throw stones at him, or even sometimes stool or urine was poured, and people would basically misuse or not able to understand, recognize the value or the glorious presence of Rishabdev. So it is mentioned that Rishabdev wanted to counteract this, and eventually he took to Ajagara Vritti. He stopped traveling. Earlier he was touring the entire universe, and now he stopped that, and he just stayed in one place. And then when he would honor prasadam, and then he would basically pass stool and urine, he would lie on that itself. From materialistic perspective, it may look very obnoxious, but it is proved that how his stool was 80 miles fragrant. That is sufficient proof for someone to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If someone claims that, I am the Supreme Lord, this is a very wonderful test, much more than lifting of Govardhan Hill. How can someone make one's own stool obnoxious? How can one make it fragrant? It is so obnoxious. So it is said that 80 miles his stool was fragrant. And then eventually he was in his last phase. That's what we see in this particular chapter of how Lord Rishabdev leaves his body. Eventually he enters a forest near Kotakachal, near Karnataka, it is described, and eventually he enters the place where he enters the forest, and the forest catches fire. So Srila Prabhupada mentions that Rishabdev his body did not burn. Rather, the animals living in that forest, due to the presence of Rishabdev, got liberated. Just like when Lord Shri Krishna enters the mountain, Krishna and Balaram, when Jarasandha was chasing the last 18th battle, at that time when they come to the mountain, and then he lights the entire mountain by fire. He pours oil, kerosene over there, and then he lights the entire mountain by fire, thinking that Krishna and Balaram must be burnt to ashes. But it is described, Srila Prabhupada mentions very wonderfully about how they jumped from the top of the mountain, about 88,000 miles. So although the entire mountain was put on fire, but their bodies were not burnt. Similarly, Lord Rishabdev's body is not burnt simply by the forest fire, but he happened to enter the forest, and the forest catches fire. So in this particular purport, we see how Shukadeva Goswami is eager to actually glorify Parikshit Maharaj. Now he is towards the end of the particular section of Lord Rishabdev. Entire narration is over about Lord Rishabdev. Eventually he is going to speak about Maharaj Bharat. So Parikshit Maharaj must be wondering, oh, Priyavrat Maharaj's dynasty is so glorious. In there Lord Rishabdev has appeared. Similarly, in the dynasty of Uttanapad, we find Dhruva Maharaj is there, and of course Prithu Maharaj is there. In the dynasty of Yadu, Lord Shri Krishna personally appeared. So as an audience, Parikshit Maharaj must have been saddened, as Prabhupada writes, that in Kuru dynasty, the Lord has not personally appeared. So just thinking that he must be saddened, Shukadeva Goswami wants to encourage Parikshit Maharaj. Just like that's why it is said, the speaker, although he may be personally absorbed, but he should be conscious of the audience. Like if you see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he would be absorbed in kirtans, he would not be in external consciousness. The devotees may be singing and dancing. Jai Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandra Bhagavan ki jai, Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maiya ki jai, Shri Shri Gaur Nithai ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. So the audience may be tired of dancing in the kirtans, but Mahaprabhu would not be in external consciousness, and it would require for Lord Nityanand Prabhu to come and sometimes inform Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because he would not be in external consciousness. If we find that once on a Janmashtami day, when Srila Prabhupada was absorbed in hearing Krishna Katha, right, from reading from Krishna book, the disciples were reading from Krishna book, and the chapter would get over, and then thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports. Devotees would get excited because it was already midnight. They were not used to fasting till midnight, initial days of Krishna consciousness. And then Prabhupada would say, next chapter. And again devotees would feel little more, already we are fasting, we are tired, and Prabhupada is eagerly wanting to hear more. And then again, thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports. And then again Prabhupada would say, next chapter. Because his eyes would be closed and he would be absorbed in hearing Krishna Katha. Where do you find any author who relishes his own books? Srila Prabhupada is showing by his own example. So usually every time would say next chapter, and eventually till during the midnight time, crossed midnight, and there were many sannyasis also, and it was graphically seen that the dandas were also falling, in the audience, and still Prabhupada was next chapter. So when he opened his eyes, and then when he saw, okay, there are devotees are tired, then he said, okay, let's take prasadam. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Then everybody was very enthusiastic and very ecstatic. So although personally the speaker may be absorbed in the katha, but he still, when he is conscious of the audience, it's more relevant. Shukadeva Goswami is being very, very conscious of the presence of Parikshit Maharaj. In fact, that's one of the reasons why Shukadeva Goswami does not speak directly or mention the name of Srimati Radharani. One of the reasons. If he mentions, then he would go in trance, and by the time Parikshit Maharaj 7 days will get over, he's going to be, Takshaka is going to bite him. So being conscious of that, he's so conscious that he is not directly taking the name of Srimati Radharani. One of the reasons. So this goes to show how conscious the speaker was in terms of speaking the Krishna Katha. A very similar exact reference, just like how we find Shukadeva Goswami speaking about Lord Rishabdev, the entire section, and now he is wanting to glorify, encourage Parikshit Maharaj. Similarly, we find when Yudhishthira Maharaj was hearing about Prahlad Maharaj, at that time Narad Muni was narrating, Yudhishthira Maharaj is asking, how is the Lord equal? And that's how the chapter, the seventh canto begins with almost 10 chapters, 9 to 10 chapters of Prahlad Maharaj. So very glorious activities of Prahlad Maharaj are being described, and how Lord Narasimhadev appears for the devotion of Prahlad Maharaj. If it was only to kill Hiranyakashipu, it was not so difficult. Lord Narasimhadev could have easily done it without even appearing. But more so, he appears because of the devotion of Prahlad Maharaj. So Yudhishthira Maharaj would have been, like after hearing the entire section of Prahlad Maharaj, he was thinking how fortunate is Prahlad Maharaj. So sensing that Narad Muni towards the end of the section of Prahlad Maharaj tells a very beautiful verse. Yuyam riloke batabhuri bhaga lokam punana munayo viyanti yesham grahana vasatiti sakshat gudam param brahma manushyalingam. Says Narad Muni says, my dear Maharaj Yudhishthir, all of you, the Pandavas, are extremely fortunate, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, lives in your place, in your palace, just like a human being. Great saintly persons know this very well, and therefore they constantly visit this house. So Yudhishthira Maharaj must have been thinking, Prahlad Maharaj is so glorious, he is so fortunate that the Supreme Lord Narasimhadev appeared specifically for him. And Narad Muni is trying to encourage Yudhishthira Maharaj, saying that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, Lord Shri Krishna himself has appeared and is staying in your palace. Aren't you more glorious? Aren't you more fortunate? No? So I'll just read some of the purport, some of the lines in the purport Prabhupada mentions very beautifully here. After hearing about the activities of Prahlad Maharaj, a pure devotee should be very anxious to follow in the footsteps. But such a devotee might be disappointed, thinking that not every devotee can come to the standard of Prahlad Maharaj. This is the nature of a pure devotee. He always thinks himself to be the lowest, to be incompetent and unqualified. Narad Muni, however, could understand Maharaj Yudhishthira's mind, and therefore he immediately encouraged him by saying that the Pandavas were not less fortunate. They were as good as Prahlad Maharaj, because although Lord Narasimhadev appeared for Prahlad, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his original form as Krishna was always living with the Pandavas. So this is how Narad Muni is trying to encourage Yudhishthira Maharaj after the entire section of narrating Prahlad Maharaj section. And similarly here, Shukadeva Goswami, after narrating Rishabdev section, is here considers, in case Parikshit Maharaj is saddened that the Supreme Lord has not appeared in my dynasty. So he is immediately trying to encourage him. And the very same encouragement, what we find in this particular verse, as Lord Shukadeva Goswami is saying, he appeared as a spiritual master, worshipable deity, friend. This is actually confirmed when Parikshit Maharaj was on a tour of the kingdom. At that time, he actually hears, when he was on the tour of the kingdom, he hears the glories of how he himself was saved while he was in the womb of his mother, Uttara. and how Krishna appeared in the womb. And similarly, he hears about the glories of the Pandavas, of Parikshit, of the grandparents, basically, the Pandavas, Arjuna, Yudhishthira Maharaj, and all of them. So he hears this beautiful verse, Sarathya Parashada Sevana Sakhya Dautya Veerasanaanugamana Stavana Pranaman Snigdheshu Pandaso Jagat Pranatim Cha Vishnur Bhaktim Karoti Nripatis Charanaravindeya Snigdheshu. Because the Pandavas were so malleable to the will of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what does he become? Sarathya. He becomes a chariot driver. Sarathya Parashada accepts the role of a presidentship in the Rajasuya Yagya. Sarathya Parashada Sevana Sakhya, he becomes a friend. Dautya, he becomes a messenger. Veerasana, this is height, he becomes night watchman. We may not even want to become a day watchman. The Supreme Lord is ready to become a night watchman for the devotees, for those who are malleable to the will of the Lord. Snigdheshu Pandasu Jagat Pranatimsta Vishnu. Maharaj Parikshit, when he heard this, his heart became overwhelmed and filled with devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhaktim Karoti Nripatis Charanaravindeya. So we find this beautiful culture of encouragement. Shukadeva Goswami is wanting to encourage Parikshit Maharaj just in case he is about to feel saddened. Especially when we are living in a community, it is so very essential for us to have this wonderful quality or cultivate this quality of encouragement. So it's basically a culture of encouragement. In one sense, we can say it's easier to criticize, it's easier to find faults in a ocean of faults. Kalir Dhoja Nidhe Rajan. What's the big deal that we are adding if we are also able to find fault in an ocean of fault? But if we are able to encourage, if we are able to appreciate, that is something considered very glorious. Because for encouragement, how does it function? Encouragement is like pushing others up. Criticism is like pulling others down. Pulling others is gravitationally easier, and pushing others up it takes more efforts, which is why it may be very easy to find faults, to criticize, but it really takes conscious efforts in order to encourage. And it just like criticism also can be contagious, similarly encouragement, the culture of encouragement can be very, very contagious, and ultimately it benefits the entire community. This applies to a community, this applies to a family. Just for example, if an artist comes with his painting and comes up to someone and says, what is your feedback about, how do you feel this is? And if the person says, "Pehle bolo kya hai?" What is it? So the artist would feel he doesn't even understand what is it. Where is the question of appreciating it? Or if a cook comes with some new experimental item and comes up to a devotee and says, "Prabhu ji, taste karke dekho, how is it?" And the devotee asks, "First you tell me what is it?" He says, "That I will name afterwards, after you taste it, after you accept it, and if it is good, then I will name it properly." Anyway, that was on a little lighter side, but basically if each of us learn to appreciate, like for example, if the cook is also able to appreciate those who are distributing books, is also able to appreciate those who are pujaris, is also able to appreciate those who write books, is also able to appreciate those who are preachers. So if it is if amongst departments, amongst the community, amongst the family, even among the family members, if the husband is able to encourage the wife, if the wife is able to encourage the husband, and similarly about the children, when it is vice versa, when it is amongst each, whether it's a community or whether it's a family, that culture is very uplifting. So a Kanishtha community will be, it'll be very easy to find faults. And if we want as a community to grow from the perspective of Kanishtha, uplifting towards Madhyama, then we have to learn this culture of encouragement. And it's not that we are doing a great service. It's not that we should feel that I am the one who is encouraging others. There are times when we ourselves need encouragement. There are times when we encourage others also. So it is always a give and take relationship. It is always each one needs one. while being taught by, each one teaches one while being taught by one. So it's like there are somebody who is superior, there are somebody who is juniors, and it is not that encouragement is required only when we are young. Encouragement is required even when one becomes superiors or seniors or spiritual masters. It is not that only young people require encouragement and seniors are like, oh, I don't want to. So there is a way to, in terms of how to receive encouragement, in terms of how to be protected by not becoming proud. Like recently I was on a book distribution table, and one boy came up and he was just a little bit curious, and I tried to explain about the glories of Prabhupada books and about Bhagavad Gita. And after some time he eventually took the book, and while going he happened to mention that I was not so inclined to buy, but because you explained so nicely, I thought, let me take this book, let me take this and give it a try. So not many people actually mention this. Not many people are vocal about it. They may sometimes just go away. But when this expression is made, it can give a motivation. So encouragement is basically supposed to motivate one to either continue what we are doing, or better is to contribute more. So that is how it can function. It can, at least in the bare minimum, help us to continue what we are doing, continue distributing books or continue whatever our service is, or better is even encourage or motivate one to contribute more. That is the power of encouragement. Because after a long day of book distribution, sometimes in between there are times when a distributor feels little bit tired, physically also, mentally also, and depending on how people are responding to the books, taking of the books. So when there is, in between, when there is some encouragement received from others, one feels motivated to continue as well as to contribute more. So similarly, that can apply amongst various different departments, because ultimately there is this interdependency amongst the departments. So if we just think that we are the book distributors, or we are the cooks, or we are the pujaris, or we are the speakers, then in each of these cases one can tend to get proud and not understand the value which others are contributing. So who needs encouragement? Those who are on the front line, as well as those who are serving in the background. Because ultimately, as a community or as a family, when everyone gets that, when everyone feels motivated, then we actually perform in our best possible efforts. One is able to put best possible efforts in the motivated stage. So when one receives this encouragement, one feels motivated to continue or contribute more. Srila Prabhupada himself would many times, by his own example, he would encourage his disciples, he would teach them how to speak. Eventually he would be sitting in their own classes, hearing them, what they are speaking. How, just like parents would like to hear the broken words of their children, it gives so much pleasure. Similarly, Prabhupada, by his own example, taught how he would sit in the classes of his own disciples. Srila Prabhupada, many times in his in maybe the Vyas Puja addresses or special occasions, he would mention that what an old man can do, what a single old man can do. But you, all of you American boys and girls, all the Western disciples who initially assisted Srila Prabhupada, he said that all of you have helped me so much in the service of my spiritual master. I am eternally indebted to all of you. Now, if we carefully analyze this statement, to a certain extent it is true, but to a large extent it is a encouragement which Srila Prabhupada is offering towards all those who are coming to render service to him. Because this is how Srila Prabhupada sees it as. So when one has that vision, it is very easy not to be proud. It is very easy to be humble. It is very easy to be conscious of seeing others' contribution, that they are helping me to serve my spiritual master. And this is how Srila Prabhupada taught about this culture of encouragement. Particularly during the book distribution marathon, he had written a very significant letter where Prabhupada writes, just by distributing my books profusely, you are giving me great encouragement to translate. An author would be so much encouraged when he sees
devotees are reading. Just like a cook is encouraged when whatever he has cooked is being relished, the prasadam has been relished. A speaker feels encouraged when there is audience, and especially nowadays in the Zoom audience is different. When you find live audience, you know, when there are eager, it's not just about the number, but if there are devotees who are eager to hear. So just like somebody cooks for the spiritual master, afterwards they might be waiting just at the doorstep just to hear some comments from the personal servant. Let me know how did Maharaj feel it, whether it was good, whether some adjustment had to be done or like. They're eager. So when you do something, naturally you are eager for some particular feedback, and if it happens to be some encouragement, it motivates one to continue the service, and best is to contribute much more than what one is actually doing. That means what? We don't have to compare ourselves with others. We have to compare ourselves with ourselves. Am I doing better than what I was doing earlier? So that way it can be very, very contagious, very useful for in terms of the culture. So Shukadeva Goswami, considering that Maharaj Parishad may feel saddened, he's trying to encourage Parishad Maharaj that although Lord Shri Krishna did not appear in your dynasty, but Lord Shri Krishna personally served. He was acting as a messenger, he acted as a friend, as a night watchman, and all that for your grandparents. So that way, that is how he is trying to encourage. And then we see about, Prabhupada mentions in the translation, those engaged in getting the Lord's favor attain liberation from the Lord very easily. So should we actually ask for favors from the Lord? Because as it is, the Lord has arranged so much even without our asking. So that is how a small child views it as. He never asks the parents, tomorrow will I get milk? Tomorrow will I get my food, clothing, everything. The parents are more worried about the requirements of the child more than the child is conscious about his requirements. So that is how the Supreme Lord makes a lot of arrangement for practically everybody. And of course, from the perspective of pure devotees, there is nothing that they have to ask the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's why it is said, Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakali Ashanta. Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ataeva Shanta. So whether it is Bhukti, Mukti or Siddhi, but somebody is aspiring for Siddhis, different Siddhis, mystic powers that one needs, wants rather. So the Bhukti, those who are in the field of sense gratification, those who ask for more, Dhanam Dehi, Putram Dehi, and all that, more and more and more, sense gratification. Or even liberation, Mukti, somebody is even aspiring for liberation. All of them are considered to be Ashant because they have some desires, they have some material desires. So Nishkama means no material desires, not even liberation. Nishkama is no material desires and not even liberation. As Prabhupada mentions in the purport, even devotional service is much, much higher and superior than even liberation. So no material desire, that is what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taught. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundari. It's very, very clear. What does he actually want? Bhakti. Life after life, only devotional service. That is also pure devotional service. Which is why when Sridhar Kollavich was approached, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is asking in the Mahaprakash Leela, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is eager to give him, ask for some benediction, ask for something. Sridhar Kollavich says, Sridhar Kollavich could have asked for so many things. Could have asked for a good house. There was so much, there were holes in the thatched roof. He could have asked for good clothes. His clothes used to be so torn and he had hardly any money even to stitch it. It was only knotted. It was not even stitched, his clothes. He could have asked for so much. Mahaprabhu said, you can even ask for liberation. You can ask for Ashta Siddhi. But Sridhar Kollavich was so fixed in devotional service, he said, my dear Lord, why are you getting so impatient? I am satisfied, I don't need anything. The Supreme Lord feels so impatient, the Supreme Lord feels so, because it's like a gentleman feels obligated when he has received. So maybe in the modern times it may not be applicable so much, but in the modern times people who have given to others are more conscious and fearful whether I'll get something back. Somebody who has lended money. When the earlier times people who are principled, people who have taken money will be more consider it, and then I have to consciously give it back, give it back, give it back. A gentleman, when he has taken something, he feels very much obligated. When Krishna receives so much of devotional service, he actually feels obligated to each and every devotee. And that is how, that is why Krishna Prabhupada mentions devotional service is the basis of the supreme relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One doesn't require any familial connection. One doesn't need to claim that I am also from the Yadu dynasty. I am born in the Yadu dynasty, so that is my glory. Or one doesn't need to feel that I am born in Bharatavarsha, so I am very glorious. Irrespective of our connections, or irrespective of one's opulences, whether it is Janma, Aishwarya, Shruta or Shri, any of these, by what can one attract the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is filled with opulences? Any of the opulences that one possesses in minuteness cannot attract the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he is Purna in all the opulences. But if there is something that can attract, that is Bhakti. That's why they said Bhagavan, Bhakta and Bhakti. The relation between Bhagavan and Bhakta is Bhakti. Bhakti is the connecting link. Bhakti is what connects one, re-establishes our real relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when one renders Bhakti, that is something very pleasing to the Lord, and that is something very much accessible for all. It is not that it is only for select, somebody who is only from the Yadu dynasty or somebody from the Goswami family, birth-wise. So it is very restricted. But here, Bhakti is such a wonderful aspect that each and every living entity can actually practice, and which is what is one's constitutional position ultimately. So devotional service is the basis of the supreme relationship with the Supreme Lord. So not even about scholarship, just to mention a little bit, because today is Devanand Pandit's disappearance day. He was such a great scholar that it is described that Purananam Arthavetta Sri Devananda Pandita. Devanand Pandit was one who knew the meaning of all the Puranas. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu particularly takes his example to show about how even a great speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, if he is devoid of bhakti, there is practically no use. The qualities described about Devananda Pandit, it is described that Jnanavanta, what is the quality that he had? Is Jnanavanta, that is, he had supreme scholarship. Then he was extremely austere, tapasvi, Jnanavanta, tapasvi, ajanma udasin. He was austere, he was scholar. Ajanma udasin means indifferent right from his childhood, indifferent to material enjoyment. Ajanma udasin. Bhagavata padaya, he was teaching Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavata padaya, still tathapi bhaktihin. He was teaching Bhagavatam, but bhaktihin, devoid of devotional service, as we say. So without devotional service, what is the use of teaching about Srimad Bhagavatam? On the contrary, we find Advaita Acharya, when he would read some verse, in case he would not find some bhakti purports, he would actually fast. It's very contrary. If he would not get a bhakti realization, he would fast for the day. And here is Devanand Pandit, who is speaking about Srimad Bhagavatam, tathapi bhaktihin, devoid of bhakti. And that is why when Srivas Thakur was a lover of Srimad Bhagavatam, when he happened to hear in the class of Devanand Pandit, he was speaking, and Srivas Thakur hears the Bhagavatam and he goes into ecstasy. He practically rolls on the ground. And his followers, they think that he is a great disturbance. He is disturbing the class, and they practically eject him out, throw him out. Devanand Pandit watches this but does not give any comment, does not tell anything in favor, or why did you do this or anything like that. So it was just as it is. And eventually it is fine. In fact, it is described that this incident happened even before the advent of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And during Mahaprakash Leela, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reminds Srivas Thakur, do you remember? At one point of time you had been in the class of Devanand Pandit, where you felt so much ecstasy and you were thrown out. I was so angry. Mahaprabhu says at a later time, when Mahaprabhu is coming closer to the place, Kulia, where Devanand Pandit used to live, Mahaprabhu says, I feel so angry, I feel like tearing his manuscripts. Mahaprabhu is the one who knows the great value of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is non-different than Lord Shri Krishna himself. But he says, this rascal who is trying to speak about Srimad Bhagavatam without devotional purports, no? I want to tear off his manuscripts. That is how angry Mahaprabhu was. But at a later time, it so happened that Devanand Pandit, where in Kulia, at that point of time, Vakreshwar Pandit, a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he comes there, and he was very well known for dancing, almost like 72 hours at a stretch, continuous. And when Devanand Pandit sees this, he was also overwhelmed with devotion. And then in the night, when too many people were there, it was getting more crowded. So he would help by taking a cane, and he would help so that the crowd does not disturb his dancing. And in this way he did some small service. And then eventually, when Devanand Pandit in his great ecstasy would fall, he would take his own personal chadar, uttari, and he would wipe off the dust. And in this way he rendered some little bit service to Vakreshwar Pandit. And Mahaprabhu was so pleased with this. So this rendering of service to a devotee actually saved him. So it was this devotional service which is the basis of the re-establishing one's relationship with the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, Mahaprabhu was so angry with him that he was ready to tear off his manuscripts. But when he rendered some little bit service to Vakreshwar Pandit, he was so pleased that eventually Devanand Pandit eventually turns to become a devotee, and Devaki Nandan Das, right, eventually becomes. So just by rendering service to a devotee. So that is how it can be so favorable. Devotional service is the basis. Bhakti Yoga is the basis of one's supreme relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna. So we saw today about this 4 different aspects with a brief recap, and then we saw about how the speaker, although he may be immersed in Katha, but he is still conscious of the audience. Shukadeva Goswami was particularly conscious of Parikshit Maharaj's presence. He particularly glorifies him, or rather encourages him, that you don't need to feel saddened that Lord Shri Krishna or the Supreme Lord has not appeared directly in your dynasty. Rather, actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead has rendered so much services to your own grandparents, and he has particularly saved you while you were in the womb of your mother. So that way he tries to glorify. We saw the culture of encouragement amongst the communities, amongst the family, amongst the ashrams, how it is so important to have a culture of encouragement which can be very contagious, which can help one to uplift from Kanishta to Madhyama, individually as well as collectively. And then we saw about how it is important that one doesn't ask anything from the Lord. When one does not ask anything from the Lord feels obligated. Like a gentleman feels obligated for whatever he has received, he wants to actually give much more. So when one performs devotional service, that is the basis. Devotional service is the basis for the supreme relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna. Anybody has any comments or any questions? Yes, sir.
Hare Krishna, Puji. Thank you, Puji, for a very wonderful class. Puji, I wanted to ask a thing, like you told Lord is like father, and we don't ask our parents every time ki kal ka milega ki nahi. So Lord knows everything like that. But we see that the importance of prayers also in our devotional service. So sometimes we have something to ask for in devotional service only, bhakti things from the Lord. Like Lord, please help me, I am not able to chant nicely, and so, or sometimes please give me some service to some great Vaishnavas, like that. So already Lord knows and He may give also, but still praying makes a relationship also. So how to understand this factor along with what you told?
Yeah, thank you. So there are 2 aspects. One is, when I said Nishkama, there is no material benediction that we want. We are not asking for material. But when asking for betterment of our devotional service, that is our constitutional position. If a fish says, I want to be in water, it is not asking for too much. It is asking for being situated in its constitutional position. So when a living entity is eager for devotional service, asking that the very prayer, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, is a petition to the Lord, that please engage me in your devotional service. So not asking for material benediction, that is one aspect. And second, when we ask devotional service related aspects, then it shows our eagerness, because Krishna also ultimately tests. If we simply don't ask anything, sometimes just like when Dhruva Maharaj entered the forest, Narad Muni appears there and says, "No, you're just a small boy, why don't you just go back to the kingdom and play with other children?" And Dhruva Maharaj said, "If you can help me to achieve a kingdom greater than my grandfather, then please, otherwise, leave the way." So that way, sometimes there is a test. So when we ask from devotional related perspectives, it also shows our eagerness. Because only when one is eager, because ultimately it is laulyam, which is the only price that one has to pay for getting devotional service. Which is why Rupa Goswami says, if it is available anywhere, do not bargain. We should have laulyam, we should have eagerness. So when we have eagerness, then Krishna, it's like basically trying to draw the attention. Like that sparrow's eggs which are stolen, and then when the sparrow says, "I will dry the ocean," that sense of determination which the sparrow exhibited attracted the mercy of Garuda, the great bird, the great carrier of Lord Vishnu. So similarly, when we offer prayers to the Lord from devotional service perspective, not from material benediction. Of course, the Lord says, even those who ask for material benediction, even they are udara. That is how udar the Lord is. That is how magnanimous the Lord is. He considers anybody who comes to me is magnanimous, because at least they come to me. That is how magnanimous the Lord is. So when a sincere devotee asks for some obstacles to be removed in the path of devotional service, or to help one in chanting, to help one to better our devotional service, when we express that, that is how we will actually also show our eagerness. And when Krishna sees that, of course, eventually it can take time, whatever it requires, because it is not just what we say. Krishna will also see whether you really mean it. Because again, to say is maybe easier, but whether we really mean it, and to test whether we really mean it, naturally there will be more obstacles. We ask Krishna to remove obstacles. Krishna puts more obstacles to see whether we really sincerely praying, are we still wanting to be in devotional service. So that is how Krishna will test. So Nishkama is we are not asking for material benediction, and second is, it is important to ask from devotional related perspectives, which is very essential to show our eagerness to Krishna, and eventually in the process one may be tested, and if we stick to it, that is a great glory which is possible by the association of Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna. You want to add something?
One of the things that the devotees always ask everywhere when I travel is, the Mama Janmani Janmani Ishware, when you are afraid, after hearing about that, Mama Janmani Janmani Ishware, that means the devotee cannot even desire, a spiritual desire to go back to Godhead, like that people ask. So, the early stage of spiritual life, those who are absorbed in Dharma, Artha, Kama, they should be told the importance of thirst for liberation. Then they should aspire for moksha. But somebody already has gone to a more advanced stage of devotion service, after having tasted some few droplets of loving devotion service, then the mukti appears like Kaivalyam, Narakayate. For them we can say that, Mama Janmani Janmani Ishware. So therefore, whenever I go to the lectures and all, generally I say, we should go back home, back to Godhead, as a general principle. Some fellows will argue with me after the class. Lord Chaitanya said, Mama Janmani. I say, okay, I agree with you. Personally I agree with you, but generally in classes we say, go back to Godhead. It was a beautiful class, very nice, systematic. This is how Shankar Prabhu used to study as well as present. And he was a Bhakti Shastri topper also. He got, I think, 98.5 or something. He set a score which nobody can catch now. After that, nobody came to 98, beyond 98. So you can see how beautifully he prepares. Big
Chetan
Haribol.
Sharan Prabhu was
Haribol!
there. Chetan Sharan was there, Murari Prabhu was there, and you were there. Three of you were there, head of
We were all next to you. We were second, third, fourth rank.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the encouragement. Hare Krishna.
Sarlakshan Prabhu is bringing thousands of Prabhupada deities to encourage the whole community. How many you are bringing, Sarlakshan Prabhu? 1008 Prabhupada deities are coming from Mayapur to NVCC. Haribol! Of course, but you only have told him to bring. From Jivadaya department is bringing for giving to congregation devotees who are distributing how many? 125? 125 books. If somebody doesn't know, please spread the word around. He's saying tomorrow is the last day, he's saying. If you want Prabhupada, make sure you cover 125.